Many of the celebrity hookups that the world knows about are juicy and sometimes pretty scandalous. Powered by Reelgood. When it comes to the twisted world of American Horror Story, few actors understand the assignment better than Lily Rabe. Over the series' 10 seasons we've seen Rabe embody everything from caustic grieving mothers and starry-eyed witches to possessed nuns and real-life murderers. But it's the ones you haven't heard about that are really salacious, surprising, and sometimes just straight-up silly. Allow us to explain. Amy Poehler and John Stamos. In October 2014, Amy Poehler revealed to Howard Stern that she went on a date with John Stamos shortly after separating from now ex-husband Will Arnett. If Rabe is on screen, you know she's about to give a killer performance. That's especially true of Rabe's deeply empathetic turn as Doris Garner in Red Tide. Doris started out this season as the lone smart soul walking into horror movie hell. The second she realized that Provincetown was overrun with vampiric copycats, she wanted to run. Instead, she was traumatized, gaslight, and ultimately abandoned by the very husband and daughter she gave everything to protect. It was new and weird. Following Doris' heartbreaking fate in Gaslight, Rabe spoke to Decider about what it was like to be transformed into a pale person and which Oz seasons should receive the crossover treatment. Decider: "You've been in American Horror Story since the beginning, and now we're in the 10-year anniversary. I hadn't dated when there was texting. I got married in 2003 and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, right now you text somebody. That was new," she said. "There were times when I was out with guys and I was like, oh, I think I might be on a date, but I don't know. I remember I was at dinner with John Stamos. Handsome men are really something else." How have you seen the show evolve? Lily Rabe: "Getting to be a part of something for 10 years, there's no other job I've ever been a part of for a decade." Ryan Murphy sort of broke the mold when he created the world of American Horror Story. "First of all, they're so handsome. It's like this wild, wonderful hybrid of getting to do a limited series where you are telling these stories season to season, playing different parts, but then also there are these through lines that connect the seasons, that connect the stories. Also, just the fact that there is this repertory group of actors that get to keep coming back together and the crew and the directors, there is this feeling of family. And, of course, getting to welcome new people in all the time with open arms. I've just not experienced anything else like that. And John is ridiculously handsome," she said. "I was at a restaurant. We were having dinner and I was like, oh, maybe this is a date. But I didn't know. The closest thing I can compare it to is sort of what it's like to be a part of the New York theater community and get to come back and do play after play on the same stage with a lot of the same actors at the de la Court Theater, or something. It's very unique in its structure, not only in the world building that he does for the show and season to season, but in the sort of world that he has built for the people who are part of the show." Getting into Red Tide, in episode 5 we got to see Doris turn into one of the pale people. What was the prosthetics and the makeup like for that? Nothing, I'm not wearing anything. But I kinda blew it. We worked on a movie, they came together, 2014. He did a little bit in a movie that I did and a bunch of us hung out. What are you talking about? Laughs. It was a lot. I do have a lot of hair. And then later on he's like, let's go get dinner. And it was fine. I don't wear extensions or anything like that, so we sort of loved having all my hair for Doris, you know, Doris episodes 1 through 4.5. How they got it all under a bald cap was definitely a feat. I remember thinking like, oh, S**t. But we had done it once before on the show. Like, if this is really a date. I think I was wearing a Leslie Knope top. I think I was wearing a shirt from work. We actually had to do it in season 3, so it wasn't our first visit to the bald cap on Horror Story. There was a bald cap, of course, and all sorts of makeup. I wasn't foxy. Stamos clarified to Extra in December 2014 that it was, in fact, a date. We're really good friends, the Fuller House hunk said. I guess, Amy didn't know it was a date. I asked her out on a date, and we had a really nice time. I think that there are also phases for Doris even before she has taken the pill. That's one of the things that was so wonderful about, not only the arc of Doris, but the arc of Doris in this one and only episode alone, was that she starts out giving birth and then wakes up in her bed, and she is being gaslit.
She has the people she loves and trusts telling her that her sense of reality, what she knows is true, is being completely manipulated and questioned so that she is losing her sense of reality. Then I hear she thought it wasn't a date. It was a date in my eyes. Leonardo DiCaprio and Naomi Campbell. Naomi Campbell was one of the very first supermodels to make it into Leonardo DiCaprio's Little Black Book. She is being driven to some other kind of sanity, or lack thereof, by this psychological torture. Even then, I had these very bloody cuticles that were partially self-inflicted shooting the episode. The New York Daily News reports that they dated briefly in 1995 before deciding they're better off as friends. Kim Kardashian and Nick Lachey. Nick Lachey rebounded from ex-wife Jessica Simpson with Kim Kardashian in 2006. He told Details, via Entertainment Tonight, that he thinks the reality starlet used him to raise her profile, because she wasn't famous yet at the time. Let's just say this. We went to a movie. No one followed us there. Somehow, mysteriously, when we left, there were 30 photographers waiting outside, he said. There are certain ways to play this game, and some people play it well. In her 2010 book Kardashian Confidential, Kardashian admitted that dating the 98 Degrees hunk got her attention. But then we were leaning into it, and Aaron Kruger, makeup department head, was running in and adding more blood to my cuticles as the episode went on. She's also recovering from giving birth. There is an IV drip that is being put in her arm that is not from the doctor, so that is happening. What I think is so interesting is, of course, when she becomes the pale person, and we see in that scene, that even her ability to recognize, Finn Wittrock's Harry, to recognize any kind of reality, what is real life. The next night I was out with Paris Hilton, she wrote. He gets through for a second. We were in her car and the paparazzi started taking pictures. Usually they would shout, Paris, Paris, Paris. But they started yelling, Kim, Kim, Kim. I wanted to hide, and Paris and I just looked at each other and laughed. She said, whatever you do, just smile. Cher and Tom Cruise. In June 2013, Cher revealed on Watch What Happens Live that she and Tom Cruise had a fling in 1987, and she loved it. When asked where he ranked among her lovers, she replied, he was in the top 5. It's not a long list, just a good list. She described Cruise as a great, lovable guy, and said they were hot and heavy during their brief romance. In 2008, she told Oprah, it could have been a great big romance, because I was crazy for him. Cher and Val Kilmer. Cher's son, Elijah Blue Allman, revealed that she dated Val Kilmer in the 1980s. I really liked him, Allman told Contact Music, via Entertainment Tonight. He gave me a real Indian scalp that's like 100 years old. Jay Leno and Sharon Osbourne. Sharon Osbourne revealed on The Talk in 2013, via People, that she hooked up with Jay Leno in the 1970s. When she's on the floor in the bathroom, everything is getting further and further away from her. Her ability to understand what he is saying, who she is, where she is, anything human is going away. One of the things I find so beautifully done is that is happening before she's taken the pill. When I was 25, I just moved to America. Before she's becoming a pale person, her sense of reality and her ability to process what's happening is getting further and further and further and further away from her, being taken from her, being manipulated away from her long before she swallowed the pill. Doris plays into one of two types of characters you typically portray in American Horror Story. I had met my husband, Ozzy, but we weren't together. She said a pal took her to a comedy club where Leno performed, and she said he was very nice, very funny. She and her buddy Prank called him. Your characters are typically either very sweet victims like Doris or crazier, more deranged, like Dark Side of Sister Mary Eunice in Asylum and Lavinia Richter in 1984. Which of these two extremes do you like to play with more? Well, I would never want to choose one. He liked my voice. One thing led to another. He came to my house and met me and then we had a little fling. The fling was more fling for me and not fling enough for him. Evan Rachel Wood and Mickey Rourke. Mickey Rourke played Evan Rachel Wood's father in The Wrestler, 2008, and the pair were rumored to have dated post-filming. Fox News spies spotted Rourke, then 56, and Wood, then 21, making out at a party. Tara Reid and Tom Brady. In 2014, Tara Reid confessed that she dated Tom Brady for about a month in 2002. What I would say is what I've loved so much is very often I've gotten to do both in one character. I have kissed Brady, she told the Kyle and Jackie O Show, via Radar Online. Sister Mary Eunice starts out as the innocent and ends up as the devil. Yeah, he's pretty good looking. Jake Gyllenhaal and Minka Kelly. A source told Us Weekly that Jake Gyllenhaal pursued his crush, Minka Kelly, to no avail for a month until she finally caved in June 2012, but the hookup was short-lived. Minka wasn't into Jake when he first pursued her. She later decided to give Jake another chance. And certainly with Doris, they're so different. It was never serious, and it's over now. Janet Jackson and Matthew McConaughey. Because Janet Jackson is incredibly private, few details are known about her brief hookup with Matthew McConaughey. The pair reportedly met and hit it off at the 2002 Grammys and had a couple casual hookups before calling it quits shortly after. Doris really truly was unlike anyone I've played on the show. Alright. Hilary Duff and Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf went on one date with fellow Disney alum Hilary Duff when they were younger, and it didn't end well. But that's part of what I've loved so much is the duality of it. You often get to play such extremes in one journey of one person. If there was another crossover season like what happened with Apocalypse, which seasons would you want to come back? I would either say Asylum and Coven, or Asylum and Red Tide. I think that the themes of Asylum and the themes of Red Tide and that real question, those questions of sanity and of psychological torture. He told details, via Just Jared. It was probably the worst date either one of us has ever had. Truthfully, this one is pretty disappointing, because we already came up with the couple name, Shia LaDuff, and now we can never use it. Shia LaBeouf and Megan Fox. Shia LaBeouf told details, via E! News, that he and Megan Fox hooked up when filming the Transformers franchise films. To me, those are always, if I had to choose, probably the winners in terms of what I find the absolute most compelling. Look, you're on the set for 6 months, with someone who's rooting to be attracted to you, and you're rooting to be attracted to them. But I also really love witches. New episodes of American Horror Story. Double feature premiere on FX Wednesdays at 10/9 CP.M. I never understood the separation of work and life in that situation. But the time I spent with Megan was our own thing, and I think you can see the chemistry on screen. Megan Fox and Robert Pattinson. When Megan Fox was on a break with then boyfriend, and now husband, Brian Austin Green, she hooked up with a then single Robert Pattinson. An on-set source who worked on Fox's movie Jennifer's Body, 2009, told E! News, Megan was totally into Rob, and thought he was really cute, but nothing ever went further than one night they were together. He totally blew her off. Julie Bowen and David Spade. It's hard to picture Claire Dunphy dating Joe Dirt, but it happened. Episodes premiere on FX on Hulu the following Thursday. Julie Bowen dated David Spade in 2002, and the pair stayed together for about a year. Anthony Kiedis and Heidi Klum. Supermodel Heidi Klum had a brief fling with Red Hot Chili Peppers frontman Anthony Kiedis in 2002 as her marriage to Rick Pipino came to an end. Kiedis would later gush of Klum, "The time with Heidi is one of the most beautiful memories in my life. The hottest woman in the world was my girlfriend, that made me really proud. I saw her and immediately fell in love with her. The relationship was not very long, but was very intense. I was at that time a selfish ass. Heidi had just come from a broken marriage. A man can be happy with a woman like her at his side. She is not only beautiful, but also intelligent, a successful businesswoman, and great mother. I was and I am still a big fan of her." Scarlett Johansson and Jack Antonoff. Long before Scarlett Johansson was an A-lister and way before Jack Antonoff had a hit song and Lena Dunham on his arm, they were high school sweethearts. Antonoff even name drops the Avengers 2011 star in his Steel Train 2005 song, Better Love, singing, "Hey Scarlett, you're not the same." Scarlett Johansson and Justin Timberlake. Justin Timberlake and Scarlett Johansson are rumored to have gotten hot and heavy on and off the set of his video for What Goes Around Comes Around. Spies told Us Weekly that the crooner got very close with Johansson in New York in 2011 while he was dating Jessica Biel. After party hopping all night, JT reportedly headed right to Johansson's apartment. A source told the mag, they've hooked up several times over the years. Justin Timberlake and Kate Hudson. After splitting from Cameron Diaz in late 2006, Justin Timberlake rang in 2007 with Kate Hudson. A source told E! News that Timberlake attended a New Year's party at the Oscar nominee's home, where they were chummy and flirting and talking all night. A witness claimed that at one point during the party, the pair went upstairs together, and when Hudson came back down, she was wearing a different outfit.
And that when everyone else went home, Timberlake stayed put at Hudson's house. Okay. Justin Timberlake and Fergie in 2001. Just before Justin Timberlake broke out with NSYNC and when Fergie was in Wild Orchid, he was the cougar to her cub. It wasn't a long-term serious relationship, Fergie told Australia's Courier Mail, via the New York Daily News. He was 16 and I was 23. It was before he got real hot and heavy with Britney Spears, Ashton Kutcher and January Jones when January Jones first moved to Los Angeles in 1998. She dated Ashton Kutcher for 3 years, and claimed in a 2009 GQ interview, he was not supportive of my acting. He was like, "I don't think you're going to be good at this." She later clarified on Watch What Happens Live that she hadn't revealed his name in the interview. But it's clear what and who she meant. Natalie Portman and Moby dated Natalie Portman in 2001, and he admits it wasn't easy. He told Spin, via the New York Post, in 2008, "I guess in some people's eyes, nerds might be mildly sexy, and, as a nerd, I'm certainly happy to enjoy some of the effects of that. But as far as the very brief affair that I had with Natalie, it's made me a target of a lot of nerd wrath. You don't date Luke Skywalker's mom and not have them hate your guts." Ryan Reynolds and Kristen Johnson. Ryan Reynolds romanced Third Rock from the Sun star Kristen Johnson back in 1999. She'd later tell Andy Cohen on Watch What Happens Live, "I dated him for a few months. He's great. It was when he was on Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place, if anyone remembers that, and I was doing Third Rock." Sean Penn and Jewel. When Sean Penn was on a break from his marriage to Robin Wright in 1995, the same year her breakout album Pieces of You hit shelves. She told People, "We dated for about a year. I was about 21, something like that. And I didn't want to be known for who I was dating. But he was very lovely to me." The singer said that Penn introduced her to Hollywood heavyweights like Roman Polanski, Jack Nicholson, and Warren Beatty, and that he even followed her on tour. When they split in 1996, Penn reunited with Wright. Julia Roberts and Matthew Perry. After Julia Roberts guest starred on Friends in 1996, the five-time Most Beautiful Woman briefly dated Matthew Perry. However, it didn't last long. The Daily Mail reports that the couple called it quits after just a few months because they couldn't stop fighting. Pink and Joey Fatone. A match made in pop heaven. Pink revealed in 2013 that she dated NSYNC singer Joey Fatone in the early 2000s. She told Glamour, "Joey Fatone was in love with me. He took me to Friendly's on a date and he bought me an ice cream. Such a sweetheart. He asked my dad's permission." Lance Armstrong and Ashley Olsen. Ashley Olsen and Lance Armstrong got hot and heavy for a hot minute in 2007. Spies saw them getting very close and making out, with Olsen even sitting on his lap in public, for a few months that fall. The hookup fizzled, and Armstrong quickly moved on to Kate Hudson. Amanda Seyfried and Alexander Skarsgård. Who knew? Amanda Seyfried and Alexander Skarsgård were, briefly, a beautiful, blonde, light-eyed union in 2007. She told Elle, "We dated. He's super funny, but I was too involved with Dominic Cooper." George Clooney and Lucy Liu. Whispers of a romance between Lucy Liu and George Clooney first emerged around 2000, though they didn't really take off. However, the pair rang in the new year together in 2006, and their tonsil hockey got tongues wagging. One onlooker reportedly noted, "She looked like she was going to devour him." Carmen Electra and Simon Cowell. Carmen Electra dated Simon Cowell from December 2012 to February 2013. When she reportedly busted him getting a little too close with his now baby mama Lauren Silverman. Silverman, as you may recall, was still married to Cowell's best friend Andrew Silverman when they began hooking up. Still, Electra only had nice things to say about Cowell later on, telling Loaded magazine, via the Daily Mail, "I just thought Simon was so much fun and was so smart and he's really interesting. I think he's awesome and very charming. He has such a great sense of humor and I honestly think he's going to be an amazing father, I truly do. I'm sure little Eric Cowell will get a lot of knowledge of entertainment and business. He'll absolutely have to take over the family empire. I can see it. I can picture him doing that." Gene Hackman and Cloris Leachman. In her 2009 autobiography, Hollywood veteran Cloris Leachman wrote of a dinner date with Gene Hackman that, "well, went right to dessert. As we moved into the main course, it was as if a cosmic wind enveloped us. Some giant space magnet was pulling us together," she wrote, via the Huffington Post. "We didn't finish the meal. We went upstairs, flew into bed and made love. It was epic. And the next morning, Gene went back to his film and I went back to mine. I haven't seen Gene since that night, but I remember well the feisty lad he was." Rita Moreno and Marlon Brando. Rita Moreno had a torrid, on-again off-again affair with Marlon Brando for 8 years after meeting him on the set of Desiree, 1954, when she was 22 to his 30 years old. She wrote in her memoir, via the New York Post, "Just meeting him that first day sent my body temperature skyrocketing as though I had been dropped into a very hot bath. and I went into a full-body blush. It was the sort of rush that inspires poetry and songs." She added, "To say that he was a great lover, sensual, generous, delightfully inventive, would be gravely understating what he did not only to my body, but for my soul. Every aspect of being with Marlon was thrilling, because he was more engaged in the world than anyone else I'd ever known. Unfortunately, the affair was not a happy one." She continued, "He broke my heart and came close to crushing my very spirit with his physical infidelities and, worse, with his emotional betrayals. I couldn't stay away. In fact, I was becoming addicted to the challenge of winning him over and over again." Within their 8-year romance, Brando married and fathered children with 2 other women and even pressured Moreno to get an abortion when it was discovered she was pregnant with his child. The melodrama led her to attempt suicide in 1962 when she found out Brando had fallen in love with his Mutiny on the Bounty, 1962, co-star Tarita Terapia. "We were locked in the ultimate folie à deux, a crazy love that lasted for years. Until one day I quite literally was forced out of a coma and had to choose life over him," she wrote. Eventually, Moreno's therapist begged both her and Brando to stay away from one another, and they finally agreed. In 1965, she married Leonard Gordon, who she called the love of her life, but Brando remained the lust of her life.